We start off our build with two 2-foot by 2-foot XPS panels. I wanted a river running through the board, so I traced out some banks on both of the tiles, and then I cut it away with my hot wire cutter. I attached the XPS to 1/4-inch MDF boards using construction adhesive, lining everything up and adding weight to make a secure bond. I wanted a little variation in the height of the play area. My plan was to make some stone risers that are symmetrical on both of the boards to allow for complete modularity. I traced out the sections I intended to cut away. Some sort of causeway or long road through the city was the idea here. More construction adhesive was applied to attach the risers. I used cork boards for all of the stonework on the build. The risers needed access, so I crafted out some stairs. I cut several 2-inch by 2-inch squares and staggered them with roughly a 1/4-inch pushback on each of the steps. Hot glue made quick work of this task. Afterwards, I cut away and squared up the stairs as needed. A little sanding block was used to get flatter sides to the stairs. I attached the stairs to the board in a symmetrical pattern, again keeping my modularity in mind for the entire build. Next began the long process of laying stonework. All of the stone tiles were cut to 1-inch by 2-inch or 2-inch by 2-inch, so it was just a matter of laying them in the most varied and aesthetic manner as possible. Occasionally, a special brick was needed to fill in an awkward gap here or there, so I made it on the fly and just continued on. With all of the stonework down, I grabbed myself a hammer and took some artistic swings at the XPS. I wanted a cracking ice effect on the ground where the snow would be. Using joint wall compound like a grout, I filled all the gaps in my stonework. Any excess was then wiped away. Compound was also added to the sides of the board to fill any weird gaps between the layers of foam. I primed the whole board with a Mod Podge black paint mixture. Dark blue was painted as a base layer to the ground. At this point, I decided that everything was a little too pretty, and the stairs were too much of a strategic funnel, so I decided to cut away at the board and make some collapsed rubble ramps. Air dry clay was used to make the miniatures a more friendly gradient for getting up the ramps. The clay got painted black and some random broken cork bits were added for more rubble. More black paint and some gravel was added. Then one final layer of black paint and Mod Podge to lock the gravel down. I began overbrushing the stonework with a medium gray. Then I hit the ground with a lighter turquoise overbrush. A very light stone gray was dry brushed on top of the stonework in the rubble. After, white paint was gently stippled all over the board to give a snowy look. I focused primarily on the ground here. We need a bridge for our river, so I traced 2 arches onto some chipboard using this tray as a guide. The chipboard will be used as a jig for my hot wire cutter. The hot cocoa jar made for some smaller arches on the underside of the bridge. And I cut that out with my scissors. And made a 3-inch wide XPS block that is the exact height and length of the jigs. Then I just glued both of the jigs onto the XPS and cut it out using my hot wire cutter. Here you can see the bridge in all its glory, but I needed to break it in half to allow for the modularity of our boards. So I drew out some lines and I sawed away at the bridge. Then I roughed up the edges a little bit with our knife. After I added stonework, glued it down, and painted it up. Looking good so far. Now on to our river. I measured out dams for our resin pour to the dimensions of our river on some clear plastic poster frame sheets. I cut them and attached them to the board using hot glue. Once all the sides of our dam were attached, I sealed all the joints with a thick application of Mod Podge. This step is absolutely crucial to make sure we don't have any leaks during the resin pour. I also made sure to run Mod Podge along the riverbanks so it didn't seep under the XPS foam. I mixed our 2-part resin epoxy and stirred it together. I followed the directions carefully, as each brand of resin varies from one to the next. A few drops of blue ink were added for color, and I began our pour. The hammer gets used again to break some of our clear plastic. This will be added to the curing resin for very subtle ice effects. After letting everything cure, I peeled off the plastic dam. With my X-Acto blade, I trimmed away and cleaned up the edges of our pour. Extra glossy Mod Podge was then stippled on for more ice. Using Army Painter Battlefield Snow Flock, it's time to add snow to the board. Gloss Mod Podge and the snow are mixed together until I reach a desired consistency, adding a little water when needed and stirring very well. Then, I stippled our mixture all over the boards. A small amount was also stippled onto the frozen river for snowdrifts. And there you go, a frozen ruin board for Frostgrave. I've added some ruined buildings and monuments I built, along with some scatter and crates made by my buddy MSTerrainLabs. And as you can see, I can spin these around for variability in my layouts. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, please take the time to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel and is much appreciated by me. Until next time, guys, cheers.